Silence filled the air. Not a whisper could be heard. The stakes were too high for pleasantries. There comes a point when the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of change. For many of you, that moment is now. The moment when you finally decide that enough is enough. The mistakes we make don't define us, but they certainly shape the path we walk. And the tragedy isn't making mistakes. It's making the same ones over and over, expecting different results. Have you ever wondered why some lives flourish while others flounder? Why some people turn ordinary circumstances into extraordinary results, while others with every advantage somehow never reach their potential? The difference isn't luck, it isn't talent, it isn't resources. The difference is avoiding 5 crucial mistakes that silently sabotage even the most promising futures. These mistakes aren't special or unique. They're common, universal. They're the hidden traps on the path to an extraordinary life that have claimed countless dreams throughout human history. I've spent decades studying success and failure, observing the patterns, identifying the turning points where lives either elevate or deteriorate. And I've discovered that it's rarely one dramatic moment that determines our destiny. It's the accumulated impact of decisions, thousands of them, each seeming insignificant in isolation, yet powerful beyond measure when combined. Today, we're going to confront these 5 life-altering mistakes head-on, not just to understand them, but to eliminate them from your life forever. Because once you know what they are, once you can see them clearly, they lose their power over you. Have you ever sat alone at night, looking back at your day, your week, your year, and wondered wondered what happened to those goals you set with such conviction? Wondered why, despite your best intentions, you're still in the same place? It's a painful question to confront, isn't it? But the answer, more often than not, comes down to this first devastating mistake: trading what you want most for what you want right now. Look at your daily choices. The small decisions that seem insignificant in the moment. The just this once exceptions that become habits. The comfort you choose over challenge. The distraction you choose over discipline. Every time you hit the snooze button instead of getting up to exercise. Every time you scroll through social media instead of reading that book that could change your perspective. Every time you spend money on a temporary pleasure instead of investing it in your future. Every time you choose the easy conversation instead of the necessary one. These moments aren't neutral, they're exchanges, trades. And with each one, you're trading pieces of your future for momentary comfort in the present. I once spoke with a man who had dreamed of starting his own business for 20 years. 20 years. When I asked him why he hadn't, he said, "I never found the right time." But as we talked more deeply, the truth emerged. There was always a reason to wait. Always a comfort he wasn't willing to sacrifice. Always something he wanted right now that seemed more important than what he wanted most. By the end of our conversation, he realized he had traded his dream day by day for 20 years of momentary comfort. And that realization brought him to tears. How many of us are doing the same thing? How many of us are trading our health for convenience? Trading our relationships for work? Trading our growth for entertainment? Trading our purpose for approval? This mistake is especially dangerous because it happens in tiny increments. We rarely trade our biggest dreams for one massive temptation. Instead, we trade them away penny by minute, choice by choice, until one day we look up and realize our dream is no longer within reach. The solution begins with clarity. You must become absolutely clear about what you want most, not what others expect of you. Not what seems reasonable, what you want most. Write it down. Make it vivid in your mind. Connect with the emotion of achieving it. Then you must become aware of the daily trades you're making. Each time you're faced with a choice, ask yourself, am I trading what I want most for what I want right now? This single question, asked honestly, can transform your decision making. It creates a moment of awareness between stimulus and response, a moment where you can align your immediate choices with your ultimate desires. I challenge you to try this for just 1 week. Before each decision, pause and ask this question. You'll be amazed at how many times you catch yourself about to make a poor trade. And with each better decision, you'll be building momentum toward what you truly want most. The great tragedy isn't that people fail to achieve their dreams. The great tragedy is that they trade them away, bit by bit, often without even realizing what they're doing. Don't let that be your story. Let me tell you something profound that few ever truly grasp. The quality of your life isn't determined by your highest moments or your lowest moments. It's determined by your daily choices. The small, seemingly insignificant decisions that, over time, either lift you toward your dreams or pull you away from them. I've counseled countless individuals at the end of their careers, and not once have I heard someone say, "I wish I'd watched more television," or "I wish I'd spent more time scrolling through social media." Instead, they lament the goals they abandoned, the risks they didn't take, the relationships they neglected, all because they consistently chose immediate gratification over lasting fulfillment. When you trade what you want most for what you want right now, you're not just making an isolated choice. You're shaping your character. You're programming your subconscious mind to prioritize comfort over growth, convenience over accomplishment, distraction over purpose. And this pattern becomes increasingly difficult to break over time. Each compromise makes the next one easier, until eventually settling becomes your default response to life's opportunities and challenges. But here's what gives me hope. This pattern can be reversed. The same mechanism that led you away from your dreams can lead you back toward them. Just as small negative choices compound into significant setbacks, small positive choices compound into remarkable achievements. Start with just one area of your life. Perhaps it's your health, your relationships, your career, or your personal growth. Identify the specific ways you've been trading your long-term desires for short-term satisfaction in this area. Be ruthlessly honest with yourself. Then make a different choice, just one. Instead of hitting snooze, get up when your alarm goes off. Instead of checking social media, read 10 pages of a book that will expand your mind. Instead of having that argument with your spouse, choose understanding. Instead of complaining about your job, take one specific action that moves your career forward. This single choice won't dramatically change your life in an instant, but it will change something far more important, your trajectory. And over time, a slight change in trajectory leads to an entirely different destination. I've witnessed individuals transform their entire lives by starting with just one consistent choice made daily. The struggling writer who committed to writing just 500 words every morning before work, eventually completing a best-selling novel. The overweight executive who replaced his daily donut with a protein shake, eventually losing 100 pounds and reclaiming his health. The disconnected father who decided to have one meaningful conversation with his child each day, eventually rebuilding a relationship he thought was irreparably damaged. These transformations didn't happen overnight. They happened choice by choice, day by day, as these individuals gradually stopped trading what they wanted most for what they wanted right now. You see, most people dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in a day and dramatically underestimate what they can accomplish in a year of consistent, focused effort. They look for dramatic breakthroughs rather than embracing the power of small, consistent actions. The biggest mistake isn't failing to do extraordinary things. The biggest mistake is failing to do ordinary things with extraordinary consistency. So I ask you, what is it that you want most? What dream, what goal, what aspiration matters so deeply to you that you're willing to sacrifice temporary pleasures to achieve it? Get clear on this, write it down, make it so vivid in your mind that you can see it, feel it, almost taste it. Then ask yourself, what one small daily choice can I make that moves me toward this dream rather than away from it? Whatever your answer, commit to that choice. Not forever, that's too overwhelming. Just for today. And then again tomorrow. And the day after that. Before long, you'll discover that these choices become easier. They become habitual, and eventually they become who you are. A person who consistently chooses what matters most over what feels good in the moment. Remember this, at the end of your life, you won't be measured by what you wanted. You'll be measured by what you chose. And those choices begin today. As we move to our second critical mistake, I want you to hold on to this truth. Every significant achievement in your life will require you to sacrifice something you want right now for something you want even more. The question isn't whether you'll make trades. We all do every day. The question is whether you're trading up or trading down. Let me ask you something. What are you waiting for? No, seriously. What perfect condition are you waiting for before you take that leap? Before you make that change? Before you pursue that dream? Are you waiting until you have more time? More money? More confidence? More support? More certainty? This second critical mistake has kept more people locked in mediocrity than perhaps any other, waiting for conditions to be perfect before taking action. Severed coat is something that might be hard to hear. Perfect conditions don't exist. They never have. They never will. Every significant achievement in human history was created by people who acted in imperfect conditions. Think about it. If the great achievers throughout history had waited for perfect conditions, we'd still be living in caves. The Wright brothers didn't have perfect weather for their first flight. They didn't have perfect technology either. What they had was a willingness to attempt something extraordinary in imperfect conditions. The successful entrepreneur doesn't wait until the economy is perfect. The great artist doesn't wait until inspiration is perfect. The loving parent doesn't wait until they have parenting perfectly figured out. Yet so many of us use imperfect conditions as an excuse for inaction. I'll start my business when the economy improves. I'll begin that health program when work settles down. I'll have that difficult conversation when the timing is better. But here's the truth. There will always be a reason to wait. Always. If you're looking for a reason to delay, you'll find one. The world is generous with excuses. What's the real cost of waiting? It's not just the time lost. It's the growth, the experience, the momentum and the confidence that come from taking action, these are the very things that help create better conditions. Consider this paradox. The act of waiting for perfect conditions prevents the very conditions you're waiting for from emerging. Let me say that again. The act of waiting for perfect conditions prevents the very conditions you're waiting for from emerging. When you wait for confidence before taking action, you do deny yourself the very experiences that build confidence. When you wait for perfect knowledge before starting, you miss the education that comes from beginning. When you wait for certainty before committing, you forfeit the clarity that comes from decision. I once knew a woman who had a beautiful singing voice, truly remarkable. But she had been waiting for decades to pursue her dream of performing, waiting until her children were grown, until she had proper training, until she felt worthy. By the time I met her, she was filled with regret, not just for the opportunities missed, but for the joy she had denied herself and others by waiting. Don't let that be your story. The conditions will never be perfect. Never. The timing will never be just right. The circumstances will never align perfectly. The question isn't, are conditions perfect? The question is, are conditions good enough to begin? And the answer is almost always yes. Start small if you must. Start imperfectly. Start with doubts and questions and inadequate resources. But start. Set that imperfect first draft on paper. Have that imperfect first conversation. Take that imperfect first step. I'm not suggesting blind leaps. I'm suggesting purposeful action in the face of imperfect conditions. Calculate the risks, yes, be strategic of course, but don't use imperfect conditions as an excuse for perpetual preparation. Remember this? Nobody ever looked back on their life and said, I wish I'd waited longer before pursuing my dreams. But countless souls have lamented, I wish I'd started sooner. Which regret would you rather have? The power of starting before you feel ready cannot be overstated. It's in the starting that you discover resources within yourself you never knew existed. It's in the starting that opportunities reveal themselves that were invisible from where you stood. It's in the starting that connections form, doors open, and momentum builds. I've interviewed hundreds of successful individuals across every field imaginable, and I've yet to find one who felt completely ready when they began their journey. Not one. What they all share is a willingness to start anyway, to take imperfect action in imperfect circumstances. Consider the entrepreneur who launched his business during an economic downturn. When I asked why he didn't wait for better conditions, he said something profound. The downturn wasn't my obstacle, it was my opportunity. While my competitors were waiting for better times, I was building relationships, refining my offering, and establishing my presence. By the time the economy improved, I was already 3 years ahead. Or consider the author who began writing her first book while working full-time and raising 3 children. When I asked how she found the time, she laughed and said, I didn't find the time, I created it. 15 minutes here, 30 minutes there. It wasn't ideal, but it was enough to start. 3 years of imperfect writing conditions produced a finished book. 3 years of waiting for perfect conditions would have produced nothing but regret. That's truth that may change your perspective. Action creates conditions. It doesn't just respond to them. When you take action, especially bold, purposeful action, you alter the landscape around you. You create momentum. You attract resources, opportunities, and allies that would have remained dormant. Had you continued to wait, think about that. By waiting for ideal conditions before acting, you're assuming a passive relationship with life, as if you're at the mercy of circumstances beyond your control. But when you act in spite of imperfect conditions, you assert your power to influence those very circumstances. I've seen this principle transform lives repeatedly. The shy individual who forced himself to speak up at meetings, gradually developing the confidence he thought he needed before speaking up. The aspiring athlete who began training with inadequate equipment and no coach, eventually attracting both the resources and mentorship she thought she needed to begin. The middle-aged career changer who took one online course while working full-time, ultimately creating the time and financial freedom he was waiting for before making the change. Each of these individuals discovered an empowering truth. You don't need to have it all figured out to take the first step. You just need to take the first step to begin figuring it out. This isn't about recklessness or impulsivity. It's about recognizing that perfection is an illusion that keeps us stuck in perpetual preparation. It's about understanding that clarity comes from engagement, not contemplation. It's about acknowledging that the conditions you're waiting for are often the very conditions you're responsible for creating through action. So I challenge you. Identify one dream, one goal, one change you've been postponing until conditions improve. Now, ask yourself, what's one imperfect action I could take today that would move me toward this goal, whatever your answer to it, today, not tomorrow, not when you feel more ready. It might be an uncomfortable email you need to send, a phone call you've been avoiding, a conversation that's overdue, a commitment you need to make to yourself, a small investment of time or money toward your dream. Whatever it is, do it with the understanding that this imperfect action is not merely a step toward your goal. It's a statement to yourself and the universe that you refuse to be held hostage by the myth of perfect conditions. And once you've taken that first imperfect step, take another and another. Each step creates new conditions, new possibilities, new momentum that wouldn't have existed had you remained in waiting mode. Remember this, the greatest barrier between you and the life you want isn't external circumstances. It's the belief that you should wait until those circumstances improve before taking decisive action. Break that barrier today. Start before you feel ready. Act before conditions are perfect. Begin before doubt is gone. Because the perfect moment to start creating the life you want isn't coming. It's already here, right now, in all its imperfect, uncertain, challenging glory. Will you seize it, or will you keep waiting for a moment that doesn't exist? Letting other people write your story? Who's writing your story? It seems like a simple question, doesn't it? But I want you to really think about it for a moment. Who is determining the direction of your life? Who is setting the standards for your success? Who is defining what matters most? Is it truly you? Or have you unconsciously handed the pen to others? This third fundamental mistake has silently destroyed more potential than we can possibly calculate. Letting other people write your story. It happens in subtle ways. It happens when you pursue a career because it will make your parents proud, not because it lights you up inside. It happens when you buy things you can't afford to impress people you don't even like. It happens when you say yes to commitments that don't align with your values because you're afraid of disappointing others. It happens when you measure your success against someone else's yardstick rather than your own. When you adopt goals that look good on paper but don't resonate in your heart. When you silence your own intuition in favor of the crowd's direction. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a highly successful executive. By all external measures, this person had achieved remarkable success. Impressive title, substantial income, beautiful home, all the trappings of achievement. But in a moment of rare vulnerability, he confessed, I've climbed to the top of a ladder, only to realize it's been leaning against the wrong wall this entire time. He had spent decades pursuing a vision of success that wasn't his own. He had allowed his path to be dictated by expectations, his parents, his peers, his industries, rather than his own deepest values and gifts. And despite all his accomplishments, he felt hollow inside. This is the hidden tragedy of allowing others to write your story. You can achieve every goal and still feel unfulfilled. You can gain the whole world and lose yourself in the process. Why do we surrender the pen so easily? Often, it's because we crave approval. We want to be accepted, respected, admired. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. Connection is a fundamental human need. But when the pursuit of approval determines your life's direction, you've traded your authenticity for an illusion of belonging. Sometimes we surrender the pen because we lack clarity about our own story. When you don't know what you want your life to stand for, it's easy to adopt someone else's vision by default. But a borrowed vision will never ignite the passion and perseverance needed for a truly extraordinary life. Other times we surrender the pen out of fear of disapproval, fear of standing out, fear of failure, fear of discovering that our own story might require more courage than we think we possess. But here's what I want you to understand. Your uniqueness is not a mistake. Your distinctive combination of talents, experiences, perspectives, and dreams isn't random. It's the foundation of your authentic contribution. When you allow others to write your story, you deny the world this authentic contribution. You offer a diluted version of yourself instead of the full, undistorted expression of who you were meant to be. How do you reclaim the pen? It begins with honest self-reflection. What do you truly value? What brings you alive? What contributions do you feel called to make? What kind of person do you want to be remembered as? Next, become aware of external influences. Notice when you're making choices to gain approval rather than to express your authentic self. Pay attention to the voices you've internalized, parents, teachers, peers, society, that may be drowning out your own. Then start making decisions that align with your own story, even when they differ from others' expectations. This doesn't mean acting selfishly or disregarding others' needs. It means ensuring that your fundamental life direction reflects your core values rather than someone else's script. Finally, surround yourself with people who encourage you to be authentically yourself, not just a version of yourself that makes them comfortable. True friends and mentors want you to write your own story, even when it diverges from theirs. Remember, there will always be critics. There will always be those who question your choices when they don't conform to conventional paths. But at the end of your life, you won't answer to them. You'll answer to yourself. Will you be able to say you had the courage to write your own story? I've watched countless individuals wake up to the realization that they've been living someone else's version of success, someone else's expectations, someone else's dreams. The awakening is both painful and liberating. Painful because of the time lost, liberating because of the authenticity gained. Consider the woman who spent 20 years in a prestigious law firm, accumulating accolades and a substantial income, all to fulfill her parents' vision of success. When she finally gave herself permission to pursue her passion for teaching, the transformation was remarkable. Not just in her career satisfaction, but in her entire being, her energy, her relationships, her sense of purpose. Or consider the man who built his entire identity around material success. The right car, the right address, the right vacations, only to discover that these external markers brought no lasting fulfillment. When he finally aligned his life with his true values of creativity and service, everything changed. Not his circumstances initially, but his experience of those circumstances. He became the author of his own story rather than a character in someone else's. Here's a profound truth. Living your authentic story doesn't guarantee external success as society defines it. It guarantees something far more valuable, internal alignment. That sense of rightness that comes when your outer life reflects your inner values, when your daily actions honor your deeper purpose. This alignment creates a power that no external validation can match. It fuels resilience in the face of setbacks. It generates creativity when confronting obstacles. It fosters genuine connection with others who resonate with your authentic expression. But reclaiming authorship of your life isn't easy. It requires courage, perhaps more courage than any other aspect of personal development. Because when you begin to write your own story, you will inevitably disappoint some people who preferred the character you were playing in theirs. Your parents may question your career change. Your peers may not understand your shifting priorities. Your partner may resist your personal evolution. This is the tax on authenticity, and it must be paid. Yet the cost of not paying it is far greater, a life of quiet desperation, of achievements that ring hollow, of constant exhaustion from maintaining a facade that doesn't reflect your true. So I ask you, what parts of your current story feel inauthentic? What decisions have you made to please others rather than honor your own values? What masks are you wearing that conceal rather than express your genuine self? These are uncomfortable questions, I know. But comfort never catalyzed transformation. Comfort never authored an extraordinary life. Begin today to reclaim the pen. Start with one decision, one conversation, one boundary that honors your authentic self. Perhaps it's declining a commitment that doesn't align with your values. Perhaps it's pursuing an interest you've long suppressed. Perhaps it's simply admitting to yourself and someone you trust what you truly want, even if you're not yet ready to pursue it. Remember this. Every time you make a choice that aligns with your authentic self, you strengthen your ability to make similar choices in the future. Every time you express your genuine voice, you make it easier to speak your truth next time. Every time you honor your deepest values, you build the muscle of authenticity that will ultimately allow you to fully author your life. Your story won't be perfect. It will have plot twists and challenging chapters. It will sometimes be messy and uncertain, but it will be yours. Genuinely, gloriously yours. And that makes all the difference. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to create extraordinary results while others, despite similar talents and opportunities, struggle to make progress? The answer often lies in understanding this fourth critical mistake, neglecting the compound effect of small choices. Most people dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in a day and dramatically underestimate what they can accomplish in a year of consistent, focused effort. They look for dramatic breakthroughs rather than embracing the power of small, consistent acts. This misunderstanding leads to a destructive pattern, burst of intense effort, followed by abandonment when immediate results don't appear. It's the person who exercises intensely for 2 weeks, sees minimal change, and gives up, not realizing that the same effort sustained for a year would transform their health entirely. The truth is this: the biggest results in life come from the smallest actions repeated consistently over time. Consider a simple example. If you improve just one each day, after a year you'll be 37 times better, not just 365 better, because growth compounds. Conversely, if you decline by one each day, after a year you'll have lost virtually all of your capacity. Yet most people ignore these small daily choices because they seem insignificant in the moment. Reading 10 pages of a growth-oriented book seems trivial, but that same habit sustained for a year means you'll have read 650 pages, approximately 20 books that could transform your thinking. Saving a small amount daily seems pointless, but with time and compound interest, it becomes substantial wealth. Making one sales call each day seems minor, but over a year, that's 365 opportunities to grow your business. The challenge is that there's no immediate feedback for most small choices. When you eat a healthy meal instead of fast food, you don't immediately lose weight. When you have a patient interaction with your child instead of losing your temper, you don't immediately transform your relationship. When you put in extra effort on a project at work, you don't immediately get promoted. The lack of immediate feedback leads many to conclude that these small choices don't matter. But they do matter enormously. They just matter in ways that aren't immediately visible. I call this invisible progress. Like compound interest in financial planning, the effects of our small daily choices are barely perceptible at first, but given enough time, they create dramatic results. This principle applies to virtually every area of life. Your health, your relationships, your career, your financial well-being, your character development. In each domain, it's not the occasional big effort that creates lasting change. It's the small, consistent choices made day after day, month after month, year after year. Consider the difference between the person who tries to get in shape through an extreme 30-day fitness challenge versus the person who simply walks for 30 minutes every day. The first approach yields quick, visible results that typically fade just as quickly. The second approach seems to produce nothing at first, but over a year or two creates sustainable transformation that endures. Or consider two professionals starting at the same company. One works in dramatic bursts, pulling occasional all-nighters to impress the boss. The other consistently invests 30 minutes daily in developing deeper skills and building relationships across the organization. 5 years later, their trajectories couldn't be more different. Not because of talent, but because of the compound effect of small, daily choices. The fifth mistake that destroys potential more than any other is this: allowing fear to make your decisions. Fear is the silent architect of unrealized dreams. It's the voice that whispers you can't when opportunity knocks. It's the feeling that tightens your chest when you consider taking a risk. It's the force that keeps you in jobs you've outgrown, relationships that no longer serve you, and habits that limit your growth. But here's what most people miss about fear. Its presence isn't the problem. Everyone experiences fear. The problem is allowing fear to make your decisions. There's a profound difference between feeling fear and being controlled by it, between acknowledging the discomfort and surrendering to it, between experiencing the emotion and allowing it to determine your actions. The most successful, fulfilled individuals on the planet aren't those who experience less fear than others. They're those who feel the fear and act anyway. They're those who understand that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the triumph over it. Think about the decisions fear has made for you, the conversations you've avoided, the opportunities you've declined, the risks you haven't taken, The authentic self you've hidden, these weren't your decisions. They were fear's decisions. I've worked with countless individuals who, when they look back on their greatest regrets, realize something profound. Most regrets come not from actions taken, but from actions avoided due to fear. Not from risks that failed, but from risks never taken. Not from words spoken, but from words left unsaid. The travesty isn't that you might fail if you take the risk. It's that you've already failed by not taking it. The rejection hasn't happened in the future. It's happening right now, self-imposed, as you reject your own potential out of fear. Here's the bitter truth. Fear will always be present when you're on the edge of growth. Always. If you're waiting for fear to disappear before you take action, you'll be waiting forever. The only way to overcome fear is to act while feeling it. To make your own decisions despite fear's loud objections. This doesn't mean being reckless. It means being courageous. It means acknowledging the fear, thanking it for trying to protect you, and then gently setting it aside and just take purposeful action anyway. We've journeyed through 5 devastating mistakes that silently derail even the most promising lives. Trading what we want most for what we want now, waiting for perfect conditions, letting others write our story, neglecting the compound effect of small choices, and allowing fear to make our decisions. These mistakes aren't rare or exceptional. They're common, universal. They're the hidden traps on the path to an extraordinary life, and recognizing them is the first step toward avoiding them. But awareness alone isn't enough. You must take action. Decisive, immediate action. Start by asking yourself, which of these mistakes has had the greatest impact on your life? Which has cost you the most in terms of progress, fulfillment, and growth? Be ruthlessly honest with yourself. Then make one decision today that counters that mistake. One choice that demonstrates your commitment to a different path. One action that says, this is not how my story will go. Remember, transformation doesn't happen in dramatic moments of revelation. It happens in the small, consistent choices made daily with purpose and awareness. It happens when you choose what you want most over what you want now. When you act in imperfect conditions. When you reclaim authorship of your own story. When you trust the compound effect of small choices. When you make decisions despite fear, not because of it. Your extraordinary life is waiting, not in some distant future, but in the choices you make today, right now, this moment. So choose wisely, choose courageously, choose consistently, because that's how ordinary people create extraordinary lives.